Hello, everyone, and welcome into crushthestreet.com. I am Kenneth Amaduri, and we're going to be talking today about Entheon Biomedical. This is a company that I've personally partnered with on the US. It trades under ENTBF. So I'm super excited to be speaking today with the CEO himself. And we're going to be talking about psychedelics and the breakthroughs in the technology, therapeutics, and really drawing the line between what is, a traditional drug and something that is plant-based and actually helping people. That's really what it is. And really that paradigm shift. A lot of this happened in the cannabis industry already. And so we're really starting to see that now with psychedelics. So again, Entheon Biomedical trades on the US under ENTBF. We'll have that in the description area. Timothy, thank you so much for coming on Crush the Street with me today.
Thank you, Kenneth.
Well, Tim, if you would start off by telling us how you got interested in the company and what brought you to Entheon.
Yeah, great question. The reason why we started Entheon is actually really super deeply personal. I lost my brother to addiction in 2019. It didn't happen overnight. It was actually the culmination of 20 years of things happening. He suffered from some trauma and some mental health stuff through his teens. And yeah, a really at the time useful thing that he found for himself was substances to help self-medicate. Yeah, he underwent some pretty serious trauma. He couldn't leave the house for about 5 years. And for the time, it was the best option that he had available to him. But over the course of that 20 years, it really did evolve into something that was super life-threatening and really detrimental to his mental health as well as his general health. And sadly, we lost him to an overdose while he was in a government-run facility in 2019. And so yeah, I was responsible for taking care of him as his essentially guardian, or the person who was managing his care in the 2 years that preceded his death. And yeah, it was a case study, I guess, in the limitations of the currently available treatment options. And I mean every treatment option. He was undergoing psychotherapy, sort of mindfulness training. He was on Suboxone, methadone, antidepressants, anxiolytics, antipsychotics. Dozens, if not hundreds, of mental health professionals and peer support workers were all really earnestly trying to help him. But given the tools that were available at the time, try as they might, and they did sincerely try, there's some limitations to that. And, all that really important internal work that is sort of crucial to 12-step based recovery, psychotherapeutic and sort of interventions, that was, for whatever reason, walled off by trauma. And so, like, I know personally and firsthand that psychedelics have a really transformative potential. I too suffered from some issues that pertain to growing up in a specific type of household with the same sort of societal and familial pressures. And I used DMT about 7 or 8 years ago to radically transform my perception of myself, my life, my relationships, as well as where I stood in society as a son or an individual or a man. Even it really did help me recontextualize that stuff, and for the first time in a long time feel like I could sort of come above water and take a deep breath. So yeah, following my brother's death, knowing the limitations of what existed, knowing how much it costs to try to help someone like that, and knowing the value of psychedelics, I made it my passion to really find the smartest people in the world and put them in the same room with me to both validate that yes, psychedelics can help people that suffer from these afflictions, and then really give them the, I guess, the latitude and authority to start making some decisions in terms of, hey, what's the best psychedelic to use and what's the best way to deliver it, which is what we've landed on. And that's the sort of, I guess, formation story of Entheon.
That's powerful. And so give us a little bit of the background on the timeline. So you said, what, 7 or 8 years ago, you were using psychedelics. What was that period like, as opposed to maybe today where there's a little more talk about psychedelics?
Yeah. I'm going to be honest, it was very cloak and dagger. It was really difficult to come by. There's a weird saying in the world of psychedelics that you don't find DMT, DMT finds you. And I was lucky enough to have that ring true. And someone, it was a very happenstantial thing, and I'm very lucky to have found it. Otherwise, we might not be talking right now. But yeah, at the time, it was very secretive, very back channel, I guess. And so, in terms of the purity or knowing what you were getting, there were big question marks, right? But ultimately, I was pretty desperate. I was in a constant state of fight or flight. I was in full trauma activation for probably 2 or 3 years where everything felt like a fight and there was a heaviness I was carrying with me. And so I said, caution to the wind, I'll do this. And we recently had a story that came out about someone, suffering from opiate use disorder that injected psilocybin into their veins. And that's, of course, it's pretty grotesque and really sad, but it does speak to that idea that there are people that are at the same time, super desperate for solutions that are willing to try essentially anything. And we're really trying to, change that dialogue, right? We don't want things to be so dire and so restricted that people have to do things like access back channels or inject psilocybin in a non-medical setting and ultimately have organ failure and things like that. And so, yeah, the landscape of that, 8 years ago was certainly different from the conversations that are taking place right now.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and I guess to differentiate this from the cannabis trend, because I feel like a lot of people are, saying this is just a piggyback off what we've seen happen in the cannabis industry. But, can we draw some real clear distinctions between psilocybin and cannabis and, have it stand on its own merit, if you will? You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are certain similarities. There's sort of responding to the demonization, some of the misconstrued or misconceptions, those ideas of the past. I think psychedelics do suffer from that same thing. But unlike cannabis, where there is, a niche medical need, but more of a recreational opportunity, with psychedelics, though there might eventually be a recreational market that comes into existence, really the psychedelic research industry is premised on a huge unmet need, a medical need. And so, whether you're looking at, addiction like we are, where there's a massive need based on a really huge cost paradigm, a big market, but also really shockingly low levels of efficacy for some of the, interventions that exist right now. Or you're looking at something like depression, where, there's a massive antidepressant market that doesn't result in a wholesale, success rate that's worth noting, right? The reason why we're talking about psychedelics as being this huge potential thing, it wouldn't exist if what currently existed worked for society. And that's the reality. I think, based in medical need, that's where psychedelics really have that huge potential. I know it's quoted, and I don't know who to attribute it to, but psychedelics, in quotation marks, psychedelics will be to psychotherapy what the microscope was to science. And I do think that with psychedelics, we're existing in a sort of cool, opportune moment where, for the first time, yeah, we can dramatically reshape the conversation about mental health and allow for people to, rather than from a pure pharmacology perspective, but from a more holistic perspective, really address the core issues that they're dealing with that underpin some of the specifics about whether a person acts out as depressed or into substance use disorder, but really working on that sort of core identity component.
So what has it been like navigating the political landscape, the legal landscape when it comes to psychedelics and, the treatments and developing what you guys do?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I think we are certainly responding to the fear and the propaganda of the 60s and 70s that came as a response to what was a big potential for societal change. And so, I think it's often misconstrued that with psychedelics, there are these additional boundaries or hurdles that we need to face. Ultimately, in biotech, this being a sort of clinical trials approval type of mechanism that we have to adhere to, there is already a pathway for us to get to a place of clinical approval. And so we do need to demystify, what psychedelics are and pull away some of the, I guess, connotative or the baggage that's often associated with it. But realistically, for a company like ours, with our intention of having this being a regulatory approved product, the pathway ahead of us is difficult, but it is actually simple and understandable. We need to prove out in a very highly empirical way that these molecules, the DMT, the molecule we're focusing on, is both safe and effective. And so there is an entire, I guess, framework in place that allows us to, conduct those studies and submit those findings in a way that regulators have to look at objectively. And so that's the sort of core of our business.
So Timothy, talk to us about why you believe this is superior to, say, what you took 7 or 8 years ago. Talk about the difference and, where Entheon is right now versus maybe where things were 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago.
Yeah. So not to get too much into what I was doing that number of years ago, but it really wasn't in a therapeutic setting. And I'm lucky to have, through many hours in that, I guess, DMT space, arrived at a place that eventually became useful to me. But it is also likely that a person in a non-directed setting can have these profound realizations and make nothing of them if they don't properly integrate them. I think the psychedelic industry is emerging and evolving into this idea where it isn't a pure pharmacological, I guess, magic bullet, but really does need to be fit into a larger therapeutic context. So, we do see this as being, necessarily within a supportive therapeutic context, so that there is a holistic approach to wellness that goes from preparation to the psychedelic event and then an integration so that there is a meaningful internal reordering of things. Whereas with me 7 or 8 years ago, it was purely by happenstance. And I don't think, it was the most efficiently guided use of time. And so, yeah, I think the conversation that's taking place right now really is with that intention of creating these profound changes in mind. And so, yeah, the sort of integration of therapy plus a pharmacological agent, that's a really important feature that we need to focus on.
So talk to us a little bit about the IPO, when the company IPO'd, became public, and, kind of the timeline that the company is on now as we go into 2021 and going forward here.
Yeah, so we RTO'd in November of 2020, and of that transaction, we gained some good working capital. But we understand that in order for us to get a drug fully developed through the phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and the sort of distribution marketing that happens thereafter, it is a bit of a long journey. There are significant de-risking events that take place along the way that will hopefully boost investor confidence. And we do have a ton of confidence in terms of the scientific premise on which we're basing our late 2021 clinical trial. But yeah, since the IP or since the RTO, we've also been looking at how do we generate shareholder value in a way that also aligns with our core aim, which is helping people. And so we understand that the pharma discovery pathway takes as long as it takes. It's not the 10-year journey that is so often mischaracterized, but we optimistically see this as being a 4 to 5 year journey to get it through clinical approval. But along the way, we understand that, like I was talking about, that holistic approach really does take into account a whole number of variables. No patient is the same as the next patient that comes in. So in order for physicians to make really sort of data-informed choices, ultimately with the interest of the patient in mind, they need tools that can allow them to better assess what medications to prescribe and to alert themselves to some of the potential pitfalls or negative reactions that might take place from the administration of a certain molecule. And so with our recent acquisition of Halogen Life Sciences, we are, establishing one of the legs of that stool, which is, creating a tool, will pretty soon be commercially available, that will allow physicians to have a genetics understanding of what some of the dangers as well as a variability of a patient might be. Ultimately, from a genetics perspective, we all do have certain things that modify how we respond to certain medicines. And so that is one leg of it. And we've recently partnered since the RTO with a technology company in the EEG space. And so EEG space is super interesting to us because EEG is at the moment the most reliable, well-researched measure of real-time brain activity. And so, sometimes within the psychedelic space, there is still some mystique or I guess opacity as it pertains to, hey, what is a person actually experiencing when they're under the effects of psychedelics? With EEG, we believe that we have a very nimble, real-time way of measuring, hey, what is this person feeling right now? Are they in danger? Are they in a therapeutically useful space? But then also prior to the psychedelic, what are the sort of brain activity abnormalities or differences that this person walks into therapy with? And based off of those two facets about a genetics perspective as well as a biometric or a biomarker perspective from brain imaging, um, we think that we can start providing physicians with a more precise way of assessing what some of the dangers are. And from there, they can start making informed decisions and say, hey, given your genetics as well as your brain phenotyping, I would suggest that rather than using psilocybin, we used ketamine for your depression. So in the near term, we're trying to develop tools that could be quickly mobilized and utilized by this growing psychedelic therapy market that's coming up every day.
So Timothy, obviously the company being more early stage right now with the recent RTO and everything you guys got going on. What's your vision for, let's say, 5 or 10 years down the road? What's the company doing down the road at that far ahead?
Yeah, we hope we'll be nearing completion or completed our drug approval for DMT. So we're developing out a continuous infusion DMT technology that will ultimately be prescribed, hopefully by some of the therapy clinics that are developing now. And we believe that in 5 years' time, that therapy network will be much larger than it is right now. And we think we're creating an optimal psychedelic delivery tool. And so, but along the way there, we see an opportunity for us to do research in that field of data that supports physicians. So as this industry takes shape, we're very much interested in, developing these tools that might be earlier deployed. So we can help these clinics make these informed choices and, have more assurance of safety and effectiveness, and allow them to prescribe the best molecules for their patients. Because ultimately, every physician has a duty of care to their patient, and they want to make the safest, so most informed choices. So, yeah, in 5 years' time, hopefully our drug will be approved. But along the way, we do think we'll be generating revenue from the development of these tools and having our tools sort of widely employed in the therapy clinics.
All right, Timothy. Well, thank you so much for your time here at Crush the Street. If people want to learn more about you or Entheon, please let them know where they can go and what they can expect to find.
Yeah, certainly. We are at entheonbiomedical.com. That is ENTHEON biomedical.com. And I encourage everyone to sign up for the newsletter. More information, more interesting discoveries, and I guess commercial developments are planned. And we want everyone to be in that stream so that they know as soon as everyone else does just what we're working on.
And we'll have some links in the description area for everyone as well. Thank you so much, sir, for coming on the show with me today.
Yeah, absolutely, it was a pleasure.